Hello everyone, welcome again to another episode of Pleasant Evenings Book Club. We're here, a little change of pace today. We're doing some creative nonfiction. We're doing the landmark journalism piece by Nellie Bly, 10 Days in a Madhouse. We're going to do this one in 2 episodes, so we're covering for the first half just her journey getting into the madhouse, and join us next week while we talk about the juicy madhouse details. This is Roberto, joined here today by Corbin.
Hi, thanks for joining us again.
And Hannah.
Hey there.
All right, how's that for an intro? We good?
Yeah, I think so.
What was it like making this change of pace? Did it feel like a big departure from what we'd read before?
Yeah, I'd say so I think like the core elements of like the narrative are still there, and like you can definitely you know, the prose doesn't feel so different. You know what I mean? Like it's not written like a New York Times article in any respect. You know what I mean? So I in that sense, it's I don't think it feels all that different. There is a more matter-of-factness to it, of course, you know, it being journalism. But I would say that's like the biggest departure so far. That, and it maybe like offers a little less space for like you know, like artful interpretation and more like you know, like factual interpretation, I guess, if that makes sense.
Right, yeah, it was definitely like it really felt like just like a person kind of like relating their experience. I think it's interesting that you bring up the comparison to like a modern like New York Times article,
right,
or whatever expose embedded journalism piece. Like as a kind of, because now like certainly creative nonfiction has matured into its own sort of genre with its own tropes. Like I feel like I've read like a million like people trying to be David Foster Wallace, like doing some kind of thing where like I spent a day with James Cameron or whatever, and it always is, it's always like these like it always starts in like this languid way of like entering into some alien place. He held some fruit I've never seen before, and he said, "This is delicious. Have you ever tried this?"
I think a lot of these modern expose pieces seem to be probably more inspired by the Gonzo style of journalism.
Yeah, that might have been the start of it.
At least as its own distinct thing. This feels pretty proto-Gonzo, though. I think Nellie Bly was also the first stunt girl in journalism. Or in news reporting.
Stunt girl.
Yeah, like for a while there was a genre or whatever, a story for stunt girls
In journalism too, you know, just like not in movies. But I mean, she certainly seems daring. Like, good lord.
Right.
I feel like in the first chapter, I noticed her wavering a bit in her description of herself in terms of her like own ability to accomplish her task. You know what I mean? I see this quote in the doc that said, "I had some faith in my own ability as an actress," but I feel like there's one later on where she like says, "I have no faith in my ability as an actor." You know what I mean? Did I imagine that, or?
Well, no.
I feel like I think that's like she keeps it like literary in that way where she just like creates these moments of tension of like,
right.
I wasn't sure if they were gonna find me out, if those clever journalists get their hands on me.
I don't know a lot about that time, but gosh, there were a lot of journalists like intervening in like random medical cases. Do you know what I mean? Like, somebody might be insane and has done no harm to anyone. Like, better send a dozen reporters. Like, I guess.
But you know, it adds to the tension.
It certainly does. No, I was gonna say, I was just thinking about how much harder it makes it to do what she does. When when you read it, she says something to the effect of like, "Yeah, I was lucky none of them recognized me," and for a moment you think of it in like a
Chekhov's gun or something.
Well, yeah, or like going from a fiction to nonfiction, sort of, perspective. It's in my head. I was like, well, of course, it's easy to just write that, but then you stop and think like, oh no, I guess that actually happened. Like she actually somehow didn't encounter a single other journalist who recognized her, and was presumably a smaller pool of journalists back then.
Yeah,
so.
And I don't mean this as just like a pun, but like the fiction to nonfiction. Also, she's like embedded in this idea of like, okay, I'm Nellie Brown now, Nellie Moreno, I guess. I guess later, but I'm Nellie Brown now. Like you're trying to like stay in character, and then suddenly someone sees you like Nellie, like that. Like suddenly you like take a look at yourself.
I wonder why she chose to go with the same first name. I guess just to be easier on herself. It
was the initials in her clothing tags. They chose that name for her for it to be consistent with the clothing when they would take it.
I must have glossed over that when I was reading.
Yeah, there was a bit on that, like part of the plan. But it's crazy how much, like, the mechanics, like, chapter 1 is weirdly short, but, like, the two things that stick out to me in the beginning is that the story is assigned to her, but she still makes all of the plans. And, like, she asks, like, how will you get me out? And the editor just goes, I don't know, but we'll get you out.
What a scary proposition to have made to you.
You imagine being like a worker and like 18 whatever, and then also having been a woman. Like, oh my god, of course. You figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, that does feel, that's a pattern, isn't it? Just in society or whatever.
Yeah. No. You might see it come back around too in society.
Yeah, so like, I guess, let's go over this crazy story. Apparently, I saw on Wikipedia, so grain of salt there. Apparently, she did like alert, like the governor's office or something, that she was going to be doing this.
Interesting that she didn't say that.
Yeah, I mean, it helps for the tension.
Yeah. I mean, so in a way, like I kind of already felt like she was pretty protected. Like having the news agency to like say, "Hey, this lady isn't crazy. We totally just like pulled one over on you."
Yeah,
it seems like they'd have to let her out. You know what I mean? Especially if they broke the story.
I don't know, like news agency versus a insane asylum hospital. That could be, if the government had not known that could very well be a hot button issue to let her out or not.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Especially the doctors were like, oh, well, we actually do find her to be quite ill, so we're going to keep her.
Yeah, if we didn't know how it ended because it's real life, like if this was pure fiction, there's a chance that like the story is like, oh, actually she was set up the whole time.
I read that'd be quite a psychological thriller.
No.
I mean, that's what One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest kind of is.
Right? Like, yeah. He like pretends to be insane, and they're like, "Oh, actually, what a coincidence!" Because he actually is insane.
Yeah. Right. I better never go near like an 1800s insane asylum because it'll like draw me into the tractor beam.
Oh yeah, like they could just decide, right? So yeah, let's go through her story. So this story is like, this idea is dropped on her desk, and she decides that she's got the acting chops to do it. So she like plans out what she's gonna do, which is she's gonna like just show up at like at a woman's shelter and try to convince people there that she's crazy for them to then refer her, take her to like the medical professionals. It ends up being a little bit more circuitous of a path, but obviously it worked out for her. I guess like to make it more believable, they have like a bit, like she writes a bit about preparing in her room. She's trying to imagine like what crazy people. Sorry, I'm using like these terms. I guess it's an old book. They just use the terms. Is crazy an okay word for this podcast? Should we be saying the?
I don't know what you should say here, to be honest with you. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that on there.
I just realized, this is written in very 1880s language.
Yeah, it's I I think maybe like, on the record prefacing this with that is probably the actual right thing to do, maybe. And that way anything you talk about is like covered by the, the blanket of like, hey, we've disclaimer.
Yeah, okay, so a disclaimer here. We're going to try to talk about mental health using the, according to the best understanding of mental health, that during a time when even the mental health professionals didn't seem to know much. So we're going to do our best to just stick to the words that they use as they use them. And yeah.
Please, for the love of God, don't cancel us.
That's not an expression of our own views.
We're just going to try to be as sensitive as we can to
professional as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of we'll use the words as they appear in the book, and then please don't cancel us because we're just being literary accurate. We don't, we're not ableist.
Yeah, and so to some degree, I think so her word when she's preparing seems to be crazy. She uses that word a lot, and to some degree, that kind of reflects her understanding of what whatever mental health is, because what she has to go off of is just that they say that crazy people have staring eyes, so she just practices in front of the mirror, opening her eyes really wide. I guess that's an interesting thing where in order to get into this place, she just sort of takes the affect of a stereotypical crazy person and just tries to feel out the vibe of what people expect to see, which works out for her.
It certainly does. Yeah, almost a little too well.
Yeah, it's funny. As it goes, it seems to get easier and easier too.
Yeah, it's kind of like a dominoes thing, there's a tipping effect in terms of how crazy people think you are, and it's the more people say they think you might be crazy, the crazier you just become by default.
Really shows how socially founded it must have been back then, or socially based. Just
socially based.
Well, just being considered an outcast back then might have been enough to get you cast into there.
Yeah. So it's telling that in terms of on that outcast thing, so her plan is to go to a boarding home for women, the temporary home for females, number 84. But she goes out to the temporary women's home to
be just the weirdest one there.
Yeah. Try to scare everyone with her vibes.
Which conceptually, what is a woman's boarding house? Is that are they homeless? Is it a charity? Wasn't there a woman that was just there to shop? I'm just so confused.
It seems like it was for people that freshly moved or freshly got employed, didn't quite have the resources to, I don't know, lease an apartment, but definitely longer than wanting to book a hotel.
Yeah, it's a women's shelter. We still have that, but I guess it's not as not as visible now.
Right, but those are more charity organizations. They're more for the poor or the sort of battered. I mean, right? They don't generally take women who are in town to shop or just moved and are about to get a job, right? Right?
Up to the mid 20th century, also up until World War II. A little past that too. It was also career job opportunities was very difficult. So if you were a single woman, who didn't have a family to stay with, you couldn't be staying with a man, and you couldn't really stay at a hotel. Boarding houses for women or apartments just for women were pretty common to see. And when there's less money for women to make too, when it was really only options if you can't be a groundbreaking journalist, is mostly house duties.
Right. Huh. Sad. I guess that's how it'll be in 5 years in America. Sorry. Doomer shit.
Yeah, I feel like every episode we need to either have a doomer moment or a From Software moment, and I'm guessing we're gonna get more of that this time. The doomer stuff, I mean.
Yeah, doomer's pretty easy. I don't know how we're gonna work From Software into this. At least this episode. We'll see what the future holds. Inside the asylum, maybe we'll get a little From Soft, but
yeah, there's potential there.
It could happen.
But yeah, this boarding house, however much charity it is, like everyone there except for one person is working class, or like at least like working, like urban working class, which is, but they still charge was it 30 cents a night?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which in those days I think would have been like $9.
Holy shit. I was gonna say, because the cost of her shitty beef dinner is the same as the
also
cost
30
of her...
cents, yeah.
Right, yeah, right.
So like if every meal was $9,
that's kind of a good deal, to be honest with you. I mean, if you're renting a house for a night, or like a room for the same price as
that'd
your
be good.
fast food dinner, like that's chill.
I just want to be cheaper than my bed at least.
Because I mean, you can still get a shitty beef dinner for $9, but I'll tell you what, you cannot get a hotel room.
That's true.
Yeah, like living is definitely like
Right.
gone through some inflation, like some more inflation. But speaking of, so like any details on the temporary home, like so like the food is something that comes up a lot even afterwards, is how bad it is. Like it's just slammed on a tray onto an unvarnished, plain wooden tables.
Yeah, there's yet to be like an appetizing description of food in this book, I should mention. It seems to be actually going downhill progressively.
Oh yeah. I was gonna skip ahead when she mentions beef tea.
Yeah, what is beef tea? I meant to like look that up, and I kind of got a little sick thinking about it and didn't. I'm gonna look it up now, though.
I can only think it's just like broth, like just straight broth to drink.
Oh, to drink. Phenomenal. I guess you know what, I can't lie. I got the what is it, the shin ramen. I know how it goes.
Yeah, if you took out the ramen, like if you took out the noodles and just had that.
Just drink the broth. Well, see, by the time I eat all the noodles, there's a fair amount of broth left, and you best believe I'd slam that shit like a Baja Blast.
You gotta.
Right.
Pour it into a cup to really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, over ice? Forget about it. You can make a Bloody Mary that arguably, like, someone has made a Shin Ramen Bloody Mary. Is that's the brand, right? Am I pronouncing that? I'm probably mispronouncing it.
Yeah, no.
Life hack?
The spicy ones, you know what I'm talking about. What?
Here's what you gotta do. You gotta take that broth, you pour it into your ice cube tray, and then you put it in the freezer. You got some tasty, make your water tasty, or your soda. You suck on it, it gets hot in the summer.
Right. Anytime I have guests over, I say, do you want water with ice? And then I get them that, and slowly the water turns brown.
Yeah, just like a nice pale brown.
Yeah, I put the beef ice cube in the middle, right? And then it melts the slowest, because it's surrounded by the others, and it's also the least visible to the naked eye, right? And that way, about 20 minutes into our visit, they go to take a sip of water, and they're drinking gravy.
And what's nice about that, it's also, like, you have to have it outside, because if anyone sees it, they're going to go for it first.
Yeah, right. This is golden. Make sure you don't edit this out, by the way. This is like primo content.
Yeah, now we're, like, really helping people.
Keep this in for sure. This is, like, literary analysis at its peak.
This is going to be our most... We're an hour into our recording, and we're 2 chapters into it.
Yeah, right. We ought to step it up.
Okay,
I think the thing is, this whole story is pretty bare bones, so it feels like we gotta add some meat just to every little thing.
Oh yeah, we're adding meat and delicious ice cube.
Right. Yeah, get your meat water today, folks.
Yeah, so like her analysis of the place. She says, "I've often moralized in the repulsive form charity always assumes. Here was a home for deserving women, and yet what a mockery the name was." Yeah, it seemed like a very bare bones kind of situation. Obviously, the food. She goes into like some of the people that are living there, living in what she called enforced idleness. Like they didn't really have anything to do. There was one who was just there with her awful child. There was one that would go to sleep and snoring, wake herself up. There's a couple knitting, and most of them just kind of sat around there. Like who is it? So we got the the matron is sick, so it's her assistant that's there, and she's the one who she convinces is sick, right? She starts saying like, these people are just sitting around doing nothing. She tells her, oh, they all look crazy, and I'm afraid of them.
That's a really good line. I like the way that she says that everybody else looks crazy, because that's just...
Yeah. She puts the idea of insanity into their heads, but...
Like, immediately, yeah. It's clever, because obviously not everyone is crazy, but, you know, the idea of insanity is raised and then focused on her specifically, because the thing she's saying is, like, absurd. Like, you couldn't have everybody be insane, so...
Yeah, so that's just pretty clever, and, like, that's good knowledge.
Right.
For an actor, too. You don't say the thing directly, you try to reveal it.
Classic projection.
Yeah, like she raises the specter of it, you know what I mean? Like what if there was an insane person here?
So she scares away that person. The only person that's helpful is this lovely woman called Mrs. Kane. She does manage to scare everyone except Mrs. Kane, who looks on her with pity. So her tactics are to pretend to be really afraid of everyone, to refuse to sleep, and to insist that her trunks are missing.
I just want my trunks. I just want my trunks. Sorry. Go ahead. That's what she says.
Oh my God. What she says. What'd you think of that when she's just sitting around, when she's just like trying to keep herself awake? One, because she knows that if she slept soundly, she would look too sane. She knew she would sleep in the manner of a mentally sound person. And, like, what does she do with that? Like, she takes the time to go over her entire life and think about her future.
What was it, the best night, she said?
The best night of her life.
Well, that's what I mean. To be honest, I think she uses it to fully get in character. In that moment, she goes the little extra amount of insane that she needs, I think, to finish the job. You know what I mean? Like, she really, like, gets in character in that moment. Everything else was just practice.
Yeah, she's kind of, like, avoiding things. Yeah, and after that, like, because she doesn't come up with the trunks idea until later, I don't think.
Yeah, that's another really good one, because she doesn't, like, verbalize that she's come up with that, she just starts doing it in the story, which is interesting, too. It just makes it seem even more like a stroke of genius that she, like, found that narrative and then stuck to it, you know?
Yeah. And she does that, too, later when she tells the judge that she's Cuban. Or, like,
Yeah, right. I couldn't like establish a feel for how much that was bullshit and wasn't. I guess it must have all been bullshit, because what motive does she have to tell the truth at this point? So, but I know nothing about Nellie Bly. I was like, oh, she could be Cuban. Like,
I think she's like from Pennsylvania or something.
Oh, me too. What?
Oh, yeah. Wikipedia says Pennsylvania.
Oh shit, where at?
Cochrane Mills in Armstrong County.
I don't know where that is.
It's part of the Pittsburgh metropolitan area.
Oh, okay, so it's outside of Pittsburgh then.
Yeah, the trunks thing, again, I don't know if it's like part of her genius or just like a nice coincidence, but then the trunks thing becomes the lie that they think they're telling her to get her out of the place. Oh, we'll find your trunks. Come along, go with this nice police officer. And
right. Yeah, like the way that they just keep stringing her along with diversions.
Yeah, so she goes to the police station. They do some more of that, like, narrative tension where she mentions that she actually had a conversation with a certain police officer that was there. So if he saw her and recognized her, the game would be up. And if these clever journalists who are at the police station all the time, they would figure out the truth immediately because they're so smart. I think part of the she takes advantage of taking her time getting to the asylum. It lets her like do a sort of a tour of just how outsiders are kind of processed or taken care of. Like she mentions over and over again how pretty much she was lucky to be around individuals who happened to be nice, because the people at that other place were all mean to her except for Mrs. Kane. There's this bit in the police station where she says, sorry, I looked around at the strange crowd about me, composed of poorly dressed men and women with stories printed on their faces of hard lives, abuse, and poverty. Everywhere was a sprinkling of well-dressed, well-fed officers watching the scene passively and almost indifferently. Like, she talks about how they see so much of it, it's normal to them. She talks to a police officer who, like, asks her some questions before sending her along to our venerable judge, dead sister Duffy, who he takes interest in her because of how much she resembles his sister. His words are, what does he say?
There's like a lot of, not to be like, there's a lot of like good-hearted, nice guys in this. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like there's like 3 times I think she says like, I will never forget the kindness of so and so, and this guy is of course our second instance of that.
Maybe she wanted to put the focus more on the institutions.
Right. Yeah, I kind of sensed that it seemed a little bit like image rehabbing for like certain types. Yeah, I think that makes sense. We'll see how she covers the institutions in the later chapters. Obviously, she starts off pretty strong on them, you know.
Yeah, and I guess like also like she went into like a situation where meanness is just part of the environment, and then people who are nice are like the bits of contrast.
Right.
So it's like a little bit of happy place. I guess Judge Duffy is pretty nice. I love the way they phrase it. I'm sorry, not to harp on the dead sister, but it's so funny. Poor girl, I will be good to her, for she looks like my sister, who is dead.
Yeah, right. I see, this is what I mean about her writing a little bit. Like, I'm sure that isn't exactly how he said that, but some of the way that because she's a journalist, it's so matter-of-fact sometimes, like...
Yeah, like, you want to get the information out, but it's like a genre of journalism, I guess, where, like, I don't think... You don't see those quotes, like, conversations in quotes that often.
Right.
I guess nowadays, if someone's doing that, like, they just... It's, you know, they usually... There's an implication that they were recorded and, like, these are their words.
Right.
The Q&A format.
Yeah, or just straight up Q&A. Yeah, so like and Judge Duffy, like, so like I think like Mrs. Kane goes along with them, and she explains that, you know, she's having a hard time. They don't know where she's from. So I think like once you have one person vouching for her insanity, like things get lubricated, and then it's interesting how everyone brings their own baggage. I guess like if you want to go into subtext, you know, it could just be how it happened, but Judge Duffy sees her and sees his dead sister, and then he just like he brings up like he just asks her is your home, like if she's from Cuba, and she rolls with it and she goes, "Si, senor."
Right. I guess I didn't like when I initially read that, I didn't like sort of like follow her brilliance in that. Again, because I didn't like know again that she was from Pennsylvania. I was like, oh, maybe she is. Like, I don't know anything about this person. But when you put it like knowing that now, it's like, yeah, her ability to just kind of roll with the punches. Though it to me, it's like a more convincing, insane, you know, bit that they can't seem to get a straight answer out of her, no matter what the subject is. To you know what I mean? Like, right.
Yeah, part of what she does isn't just make up stuff, but to like purposefully misunderstand or like say the truth in the most like weird
way,
like
yeah, right.
Which I guess like helps her come off stranger because she's not giving an answer like the way a normal person would, and also she doesn't have to commit to any lie. Except for Cuba, like it's so weird that she's like she heard Cuba and was like, yes, that's so good.
Yeah, she seized on that one.
She would omit a shit ton, though. Like, oh, we're in Cuba. I don't remember.
On the hacienda.
On the hacienda. Yeah, that was funny.
And they just go with it, like it. Yeah, it's like she plays like a stereotypical like crazy person, you know, asterisk, whatever. And then she's just like, yeah, what do people know about Cubans? They have haciendas.
Right.
I looked it up. This would have been like if I was a true professional, I would have done some research on Cuba and the American imagination. I did see that the Spanish-American War wasn't till 1897 or something, 1898. So this was before that. I'm guessing the United States had their eye on Cuba for a while.
Oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Probably is right there.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. You know, say what you will about Fidel, you gotta hand it to him with the United States right there. How Cuba's managed to be such a thorn in their side.
Bro, I love Cuba. Full support for Cuba. We love communism. 10,000 years of communism. We love it.
100 episodes communism.
Right, exactly. Yeah, yeah. That's the vibe. No Rick and Morty quotes on the podcast. No Rick and Morty quotes.
You know, it's funny. Okay, maybe we'll cut it out. Maybe this is the most crazy thing. I will still go to bat for Rick and Morty. It's not the show's fault.
I go to bat for the first season. Maybe I'll even say the first 2 or 3 seasons, but beyond that,
Rick is just a little bit too cool for a certain young, type of media consumer. Even though it's all about how he's bad, it's like, oh, but he can do anything.
Yeah, that's the problem.
I think that just attracts a certain kind of Elon Musk person.
Oh, thank you. That's exactly where I was going with this. Oh my god, I was about to make approximately that joke. I can't believe you just said it a second before I did.
But that can only mean if it's true, if we were both thinking it.
Yeah, no, Elon Musk roasted again.
Okay, well, in case you're just jumping in, in case this is everyone's first episode, or
we do hate Elon Musk.
Yeah, there's a strong anti-Elon Musk podcast.
It's a no Musk zone, as it were.
Okay, but okay, sorry. So I'm gonna just jump right back into the story. I'm glad we hit that. But jumping back into the story, the other assumption that he makes, or the other projection that the judge makes, besides that she's from Cuba, and that she looks like his sister, is that he's like, I know what happened. They drugged her, and that's why she's all confused. So we'll take her to the doctor. They call a doctor to come look at her, and he says to her, here's a poor girl who has been drugged. She looks like my sister.
I thought it would be funny if the doctor maybe said something back, well, I can't say whether or not she's been drugged, but she does look like your sister.
Well, I'll be damned. The spitting image of Loretta.
Right.
Clearly he wanted to talk about his dead sister. No one was he was dropping hints.
He was all about that. He's all about that. She must have just died or something. It's
in
crazy
Cuba.
That she's come up. In Cuba, yeah, right. Hey, are you by chance my dead Cuban sister?
Yeah, he was really hoping she would give something away. The hacienda with the well in the front, with the red door. Si, senor. Loretta, is that you?
Right.
But yeah, this rude doctor does not want to talk about his sister. He just just examines her. There's a moment where he listens to her pulse, and she says she has no idea how the heart of an insane person beats. So she holds her breath.
It's the Windows startup sound.
There's a faint sound of the ocean breeze over Havana. And the other part, and he looks at her eyes, and her eyes are dilated. And so the doctor, I guess, the thought came in, from the judge. But with that, he was like, what drugs have you been taking? And she's like, drugs? I do not know what drugs are.
Same, dude. What are drugs? What are drugs, dude? Who knows?
That's the most I'm on drugs response you could possibly.
Yo, was she wearing a Dare shirt when she said this?
I don't do drugs. Drugs do me.
Damn. Yeah, who's really getting used up? But the doctor doesn't believe her that she doesn't know what drugs are. The doctor explains to everyone else in the room, I believe she's been using belladonna.
the most obscure ass drug.
Yeah, I looked it up. Apparently,
it's a deliriant.
Yeah. In the
I don't even have to look it up to tell you that.
I did look. The one thing I did find when the historical use of it has been as eye drops that women would use to dilate their pupils for aesthetic purposes.
That's super funny. Yeah, atropine, scopolamine. Those are really bad drugs. This should not be doing those.
Damn, why would he jump to that? Like, how often is he seeing?
So that was like associated with like like medieval witchcraft, essentially. Like most deliriants were like a mandrake, belladonna, yeah.
So it's because she's a woman that she's like, well, she must be doing one of those women drugs. Okay, so they put her in the ambulance. They take her to a hospital, or they take her to the insane ward of the hospital, in Bellevue Hospital. She gets to the hospital. At first, they ask some questions, and the doctor just goes in and says it was useless to ask her any questions. He had all the papers, so it goes a little smoother. Okay, yeah. So now she's at the hospital at the insane ward, and she's seeing the different people. This is I think the turn where kindness is much more fleeting. Like she's not being cared for anymore, but treated. Like when she's taken out of the ambulance to be in the hospital, she says that it was a rough-looking man who grabbed her and tried to drag her out. And she says, as if I had the strength of an elephant and would resist. I just want to put this, emphasize this little bit. I guess any major descriptions of the settings I think are interesting. That's what I was hoping to kind of see. She describes the hospital, the long uncarpeted hall, scrubbed to that peculiar whiteness seen only in public institutions. In the rear of the hall were large iron doors fastened by a padlock. So she crossed a point where now she's in for the ride. This is the point in this felt like the point in the in the roller coaster where you put that thing over your lap.
Well, this is where it becomes real for her, especially with that rough handling looking man. That's foreshadowing if I've ever seen it before. I think. Yeah,
that's going from Judge Duffy to that.
Right.
Maybe he was oh, he looks like Judge Duffy's dead sister. I hated her. So she gets to the doctor's a little bit tries to ease her tension because she starts to she hears people screaming or something, and the doctor's oh, what a noise the carpenters make. And then he leaves her alone. He really thinks she's insane, and he wants to leave now. And now that she's there, she sees some other people. There's an Irish nurse, Miss Ball, and then there's 3 patients. The first one her name is Anne Neville. She was a chambermaid who seemed to get sick. It says she fell ill from exhaustion. And then talking to Nellie, she says there's nothing wrong with my brain. I'm actually fine, but the doctors won't listen to me. She talks to Mrs. Fox, who doesn't really say much, just says that her case is hopeless and doesn't want to talk. And she talks to someone, doesn't even give her name. And Nellie Bly says of her, and I don't know if this is not PC, she says she's silly mentally.
Yeah, I mean, probably not, but again, we've disclaimed it.
I guess so that's her way of, being, kind of neutral about it. This one, this person did seem difficult to connect with, but it could be anything. Here, it does feel just more miserable in general. Even the nice nurse, it is there trying to ask for her spare change because she's they're gonna take it away from you anyways. And she's the nice one. She only has nice things to say about Miss Ball.
Yeah, I was a little confused why they like introduced her and like gave her a lot of credit as being nice, just to have her like not interact with her at all in the narrative, right? Like, did I miss it, or did she like have a scene that I kind of like glossed over where she said something real cool or something? Because other than asking for pennies at the beginning and the end, it seemed like I never heard a word about her other than she was Irish.
Did she give her a shawl?
She does give her like an extra shawl, yeah, I think.
Oh, right. Was that the one that was covered in moths or whatever?
Yeah, like a moth-eaten shawl.
I don't think I'd want that. I don't think I'd even... Well, she had to shake the moths out of it, so...
Oh, it's not even Miss Ball who does it. It's Miss Scott.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. It's kind of like Miss Ball doesn't exist. Like, she's just there to ask for pennies at the beginning of the end and be, like, the most blessed woman in the whole hospital.
I guess that goes to show, like, yeah, the hospital is not full of nice people, if that's the...
Yeah, just some lady that asks for pennies. Oh my god. Right, yeah.
The nicest thing you could do sometimes is to just not interact.
Yeah, that's true, because Miss Scott was like, take off your hat. If you don't take off your hat, well, you have to use force. Like, if I just need to touch a bell and I'll get assistance.
Right. Yeah, she was definitely aggro.
Yeah, it's like someone's like very like no patience there.
Right.
Like if you're a nurse, like at those places, like you don't know who you're getting, because I'm sure occasionally, like people who were, by anyone's metric, occasionally you would get like I'm sure you'd still get like unpredictable people.
That's fair.
Undoubtedly.
So you have to like have sort of like your ways of plying people.
Right. Well, I guess the unfortunate thing is this is a job to her.
Yeah, so it just goes straight to like, I know this works every time. But I just need to get through it. Like nurses today, like, right, they like their shifts are like 12, 14-hour shifts. Like, I don't know how it might have been before.
Oh, it might have been more.
It's a touchy subject. The point is that Miss Scott was rude and kind of aggro. Yeah, so they bring her the food, a small tin plate with a piece of boiled meat and a potato. It could not have been colder had it been cooked the week before. She couldn't eat it, so they give her a glass of milk and a soda cracker. So I guess they're being a little bit accommodating. I'll say here's where I've had this in the holster for a minute, but the quality of food back then, like if you were in the city, the United States, like by this point, Europe had already begun pasteurizing milk, but it was a little bit too expensive to boil the milk to get it pasteurized. Well, so what they would do is like looking for like different ways to preserve milk. There were scientists who discovered that you could put a little bit of formaldehyde in the milk to make it last longer.
Oh my!
And apparently, it's like if you do only a little bit, it's fine. But they put a lot of formaldehyde, so formaldehyde poisoning was very common back then from milk and meat.
Good grief.
Yikes.
And that wasn't the only thing that could happen to your milk. Like, just talking on milk, there was a case, like I was reading about in the Smithsonian magazine. There was some scientists like took a sample of milk from some random like milk sample, and there were so many bacteria they stopped counting. There were reports of milk that people didn't want to drink, that they would try to report because the people had found it was moving. Because a dairyman had cut the milk with like pond water or something that had worms in it.
Oh my god.
But if your milk didn't have formaldehyde or worms in it or bacteria,
bro, just drink water.
Yeah, at that point, but like, who knows like where the water's coming from? Like, honestly, I would just drink beer. Like, I don't even like when I was reading about this stuff. So if it didn't have all of that, sometimes they would thin the milk with water and like skim the cream off. I guess to try to get the most money out of it. But then, so when they did that, I guess if you like dilute milk too much, it ends up being like bluish gray. So to make it look white again, throw some lead in there or chalk or plaster.
Oh my god.
And they took out the cream. They skimmed it off. So like to get that creamy layer on top, they would throw in pureed calf brains.
Huh. So you were just drinking lead and calf brains.
Where did you get all this?
Here's a Smithsonian article. I guess I'll link it. Yeah, I'll link it. It was from this book called The Poison Squad. The writer of that book threw some juicy stories in.
Jesus. To your point, the Food and Drug Administration wasn't founded or like formed until 1906.
Yeah, so it was some wild times.
Honestly, they ought to be repealed. Repeal the Food and Drug Administration.
Yeah, bring this back.
Yeah, right. Embraced him. Well, I'm not going to say that.
Good grief.
Sorry, yeah, but yeah, she got crackers and milk, and like it was better than the potatoes and beef.
Where the crackers made out of?
What do they make potatoes out of? Jesus, right?
Fucking wood chips. Good grief.
Yeah, I bet there was something going on. This is running up to be one of our longest episodes of non-book stuff.
I know. Well, there wasn't too much book stuff to talk about in the grand scheme of things, but
yeah, so
we're already on the last chapter, so
yeah, we're closing it up. Now, the other problem it's not just the potatoes and the meat that's cold, but just the hospital. Like, she's given a shawl, but it's moth-eaten, and that's still not enough. She tries to, like get warm under the blankets, and she puts the shawl over her face because, like, her nose hurts how cold it is, and suddenly it's jerked away because Miss Scott's like, the doctor's got some questions for you. And it's a handsome doctor.
Right, he's a sexy guy.
She's flirting a little bit with the doctor. The doctor hugs her. She says, like, maybe it's a little weird, but ooh, he's so handsome. This hug means a lot to her. He put his arm soothingly around my shoulders. It was a terrible task to play insane before this young man, and only a girl can sympathize with me in my position. Yeah, she really wanted to fuck him. She was thinking about pegging him the whole time. No. Sorry, I'm kidding. Only a girl can sympathize. Are they talking? When did you leave Cuba? I don't know if this is like flirtatious banter or if that's what was recommended. Pretend you know where they're from.
Yeah, I was really confused by that too. It just doesn't seem like doctorly.
But either way, it's like it's the nicest interaction she gets that night. It's really like the night's pretty awful because like the whole time she's there, she can hear, if she hears like the nurses talking, she hears them like stomping around on the uncarpeted floor. Really cold. I could this really brought me back. Like I'd been in a place like that.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, the night is like especially that first night was
pretty spooky.
It's because like they really don't want you to kill yourself, so none of the doors have locks. So none of the doors for anywhere, like so none of the doors to your room or anyone else's rooms have locks. And the first night, I could hear like someone, like a patient, screaming for some reason.
Yeesh.
Didn't seem like she was in that position to actually be like, "Oh, these people scare me." But like you just like hear sounds, and maybe there'll be more of that in the coming chapters.
Right.
But the other thing is, the nurses, they spend so much time there. They just speak like. They don't whisper at night. They just kind of talk.
Undoubtedly.
Like the thing about coming, like walking around every half hour, like they got to do their rounds. I remember, like that was part of it too. Was a nurse would like come in and take a look every like 30 minutes or something.
That's going to make it hard to sleep, too, because you just...
Yeah, it's like a little light, like, you know, like a beam of light, like, you know, creeps in every 30 minutes. So, yeah, she got, or I guess, like, she got a first taste.
Right, an appetizer.
Yeah, appetizer, that's it. They wake her up early in the morning to get her out of bed. She has another conversation with a handsome doctor. They cut her nails. That's probably like really like getting them ready to go to the sanitarium. They probably think, you know, it's probably like part of the logic of, you know, like let's not give them weapons.
Right. Can't let them hurt themselves or others.
Yeah, so they cut her nails really short. The handsome young doctor makes his appearance. I'm just gonna like, I guess like, just to set the scene a little bit, I'm gonna read this little back and forth they have. Who are you? He asked. Nellie Moreno. Did she say like Moreno? Do you think like after she decided to do Cuba, like is she doing like a Three Amigos voice?
Yeah, I would imagine. Like I have a hard time imagining her not like leaning into it a bit.
Had she done her research, there'd have been a little more like come pinga. So I don't know. She says Nellie Moreno. That's what I choose to believe she says.
Right.
Why did you give me the name of Brown? He asked. What is wrong with you? Nothing. I do not want to come here, but you brought me. I want to go away. Won't you let me out? This is her genius and her confidence. She knows she's at the point where she can say let me out, and that's only gonna make sure she stays in. Right. If I take you out, will you stay with me? Won't you run away from me when you get on the street? I can't promise that I will not, I answered, with a smile and a sigh, for he was handsome.
Yeah, that's so weird. Like, why would he ask it like that? Like, so why would he even, like, give her that chance? Like, oh, will you be good? Like...
I wonder if he'll come up later, you know,
Yeah, handsome doctor.
They met under bad circumstances, but who knows? Maybe there's a connection there.
But yeah, who's to say?
Yeah, we get a little bit more of like what she has to eat. She has some kind of mess for breakfast. At 10 o'clock, they're given a cup of unsalted beef tea. Some more of that cold meat and potato, oatmeal gruel, cup of tea with unbuttered bread. And she says this all cold and hungry, so it's like this food's so terrible and also in such small portions.
We love that meat water.
Oh yeah, I bet she's really missing that beef tea. That's such a revolutionary idea to have meat cubes, meat water. It's just like a nice way to add some nutrition to your day.
It's simplified, you know. It's a meal for a girl on the go.
A bovine drink, hell yeah.
She doesn't just like sit around eating this horrible food. Apparently, like a lot of people, she says, during the day the pavilion was filled by a number of people who were curious to see the crazy girl from Cuba. I kept my head covered on the plea of being cold for fear some reporters would recognize me. And also some people came and some people also came because they're like looking for like a missing girl. So she had to be there. So that I think that adds the weird, like the two things, like the zoo aspect of just people that wanted to see this crazy thing that happened.
Right. I don't know that it's so crazy that a woman just turn up insane somewhere. I feel like that had to have happened like once or twice a week in like a big city, you know?
Yeah, like maybe she's just trying to juice it up. Maybe when she says visited by a number of people, the number was 2.
Right.
See, I thought that was the judge's doing.
Oh yeah, he was like, "You've got to see this girl. She looks just like my sister."
I know, she's insane. She looks just like my sister. She's been drugged.
Look at those people.
I thought that's what the first plan was to let the drugs wear off in their mind. Yeah. Let that wear off, and then she'll tell her story. Maybe
that was it. Maybe he had a scoop. There was this Cuban woman that looked just like the judge's sister who knew someone with belladonna. I guess like that hospital is a little more public facing before she goes off to the island.
Right.
We get another bit which talks about how good the reporters are. How, if the reporters got their hands on her. Like, I wonder if that was part of, like, I wonder if,
I think she's just talking up reporters.
I wonder if Joseph Pulitzer's like, you gotta throw, like, every 3 pages, you gotta say something about reporters.
And how great reporters are, and how they'll always ferret out the truth. They don't miss a beat, those reporters.
Maybe she's just curing her Christmas bonus.
Right.
I mean, if you can't trust your doctors, who are you going to trust?
The media, of course.
Yeah.
The home stretch here. Yeah, it's like the other bit I thought was interesting in this journey, unless anyone else remembered like any other details that you wanted to talk about. It's just like that she adds this little episode where there was those 3 people, but then like a little later in the day, a 4th person came in who was there for, she thought like, to be in the hospital for a nervous condition.
Yeah, and it was her friends that were like, oh yeah, he's just actually sending you to the insane asylum. Like,
yeah, like,
God.
that's
Terrifying.
one of the, it's like stay in the hospital when you see the strangers, or when you're at a police station, like you just catch glimpses of people in, one of the major episodes of their lives, like what's going to be a defining moment for them.
Right.
And yeah, like what a heartbreaking slice of this person's, like, who knows like why her friends put her in there. And like it doesn't feel like, I don't know if we'll see her later, right? 'Cause they're all going to the same island, so maybe, but
yeah, I was gonna say at least 2 of them seem to not be insane other than her.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and like the bit that we get is that this interaction where she's talking to a doctor. He's like, have you just found out that you're in an insane asylum? Yes, my friends said they were sending me to a convalescent ward to be treated for nervous debility. I want to get out of this place immediately. Well, you won't get out in a hurry, he said with a quick laugh.
God, that's so fucked.
Yeah, even if that's what you think, like, to add the laughter, like, clearly she's
right.
It's so dismissive.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's like, this is like the first, things are uncomfortable before, but this is like the first part that feels like evil, or like this is where, like, I don't know, that felt like really, really dark to me.
Yeah, it definitely had like a sinister tone.
Yeah, so like that happens, and then they get ready for her to leave. They're all waiting by the boat before she goes up into it. She does give Mary some pennies.
Right, she does find the pennies, which was, I guess, a lot more money back then. When you think about it in like terms of dollars, it's like, okay, I can see why maybe she wanted that. Like, it's probably her. Yeah, it's probably gonna get her beef tea on the way home. You know what I mean? A nice meal of slush and meat water
with salt.
Right.
Bovril.
And some crushed up bugs, maybe.
Yeah, we'll buy her a rock of salt, some tendons, and a tin pot to cook it all in with rainwater.
Oh, that's what. If you got a rainwater set up, you only have to worry about the lead that's in whatever materials you're probably using.
Yeah, did I say tin pot? I meant lead pot.
Oh yeah,
I meant
yeah.
Tin pot in quotation marks.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so she's saying goodbye to everyone. I want to throw in that she says goodbye to Miss Scott in Spanish.
Right.
Like she's really, like, she really leans into this aspect of her character.
She's a really good actress.
I guess so.
She certainly is. I mean, could you imagine actually trying to do this? Like, actually trying to fake your way into like a real insane asylum, like the kind that you're not meant to get out of, you know?
And yeah, and then as an added flourish, just to flex, you also decided to make it a bilingual role.
Oh right, just because somebody suggested it off the cuff.
Like, that's a good performer.
Right.
See, because, when you're improvising, you gotta listen to your scene partner. What they're saying, everything they're saying is a gift, and you gotta use it.
Right.
Cuban, yes. And I'm from the hacienda. Yeah, so she says goodbye to everyone, and we go from... I don't know why she didn't say anything nice about Miss Scott, but I guess she started out mean, so she is...
kind of a bitch.
Yeah, no, never mind. But we go from Miss Ball and Miss Scott to these mean, muscular men and 2 female attendants, these coarse, massive women expectorating tobacco juice on the floor in a manner more skillful than charming. I think, like, as just like a turn of phrase, I think that might have been my favorite moment in this stretch.
Yeah.
Like, that's a nice little bit of Mark Twain wit right there.
Right. Yeah, the tobacco juice is really vivid.
I mean, tobacco in that form is never charming.
Yeah.
That's certainly true. That's certainly true.
Even the polite thing of carrying around this, like, a used water bottle.
It's still gross as fuck, I'm sorry. That's gross. It's gross as fuck. Get your spit bottle out of here. This is civilized society.
Yeah.
What's the shit you can swallow? Use that shit you can swallow.
Oh, if that's an option, then...
Yeah, it's an option.
Then what are you doing with that bottle? I never would, but in the way that, like, if the King in Yellow is there, you might read it. Or if you're at a tall building, you just think, like, I could jump off. Like, if there's a bottle of this, tobacco juice, someone, like, you could potentially drink it. Like, in some way...
Are you talking about... You know about Good News cigarette juice, right?
Oh, no. See, so that's what I'm saying. Like, I knew it's been done. Like, the risk is always there once you introduce that to a room. Like, anything could happen.
Yeah, it's like that swimming pool, that magic statue liquid. as soon as you introduce that element of chaos,
an entire pool,
it's gonna happen.
Yeah, once you have a pool that you're not supposed to fall into, someone could fall into it.
You have a water bottle of your tobacco spit juice.
Maybe not in this room in this moment, but in a room at a moment. And I'm scared to click on the cigarette juice thing. But maybe it'll be more palatable. You put some meat cubes in there. Put some bovine ice.
A little bit of meat cubes with your cigarette juice. That's all you really need.
Like, that's something to sit on your porch with.
Right. Is our thumbnail for this just going to be gross foods? Because that's where we're leaning.
Like the only descriptions that we get is bare hallways and nasty food. Oh, and a hot doctor. We get in hot doctors.
Hot doctor.
Guess we could put Nurse Ratched in there.
So we'll see how things are on Blackwell's Island. Yeah, this first half. Oh yeah, this man is so mean to her. Like the last bit of dialogue we get, she asks the man at the boat, "What is this place?" I asked of the man who had his fingers sunk into the flesh of my arm. "Blackwell's Island, an insane place where you'll never get out of."
Yeah, sounds about right, honestly.
I'm sure she felt really, like, glad it was supposed to be 10 days.
Yeah, that seems like a long time.
Yeah, but anyways, so that's the story of how Nellie Bly snuck her way into a madhouse.
Will she get out? Who knows?
Who knows?
What will she see on the inside? What horrors await in Blackwell's Island?
Will she meet another handsome doctor?
I hope so. We all need to meet someone handsome.
Okay, what's our over-under on handsome doctor on the inside?
I don't know enough about betting to know what over-unders are, but I'll say that she's very likely to meet another handsome doctor. I think she's on a streak.
Okay, good.
I mean, she met 3 people whose honor and charity she did have to give credit to in a row. So to me, it just seems like it seems likely to happen again.
Over for sure. I'll up your bet.
Over. Okay, I'm with you. I agree with you. I'll just say there won't be a handsome doctor, so that way one of us is right.
Oh, right.
That way we can say
create some competition.
Third option,
That way we're guaranteeing that Pleasant Evenings Book Club has a 100% right guess record.
Judge Duffy comes back. That's my prediction.
Oh, I would hope. I hope they kiss on the sunset.
He shows up at the asylum with his sister, like, hey, this is my sister. Do you look like her? Like, do you see how similar you guys look? Right. She's also Cuban.
No,
I want to introduce you to my Cuban sister. She's dead.
She's dead. My sister, who is dead. Like,
and Cuban. Sorry. I like that those are the... Right.
Okay, yeah. So I think that's the main takeaways for sure. Hot doctors, right. Dead Cuban sisters, meat
dead
cubes.
Cuban sisters, hot. Yeah, right. We've got everything, all the important factors.
All right, that's it for Pleasant Evenings Book Club this week. Join us next week for the Madhouse portion of 10 Days in a Madhouse. And we'll see how this all plays out. This has been Roberto.
And Hannah.
And Corbin signing off.
I think we did our sign off. We're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're Gucci. All right,
okay,
let me stop recording.